Today we're going to be looking at leadership styles. This is one of the most useful ways there are of looking at leadership behaviors, in my opinion. So in this introduction to Chapter 4, I want to introduce you to the concept of leadership styles so that you'll be able to understand them as you go through the chapter more in depth, and so that you'll be able to understand your own leadership style. Now, the style approach to leadership is different than what we've been looking at before. The style approach to leadership emphasizes the habitual behavior of the leaders, the behaviors that the leaders choose. So it's different than in the trait approach because in this model, everything is, all the behaviors of behaviors the leader chooses. So it focuses exclusively on how leaders tend to act along two dimensions. We're going to classify all behaviors into two big categories. The first category is task behaviors, and that's the idea of getting the work done. Whatever the group is supposed to be doing, that's what its task is. It's helping group members achieve goals and objectives. Whatever we've defined the goal of the group to be, if we do something to help them achieve that goal, that's that's a task behavior. Sometimes the task behaviors are called initiating structure or production-oriented or work-oriented behaviors, but the idea is that there's going to be behaviors that the leader does that are primarily oriented towards achieving the goals or the task of the group. The other set of behaviors are relationship behaviors, and those are behaviors that help the group function. They might help the group members feel comfortable with themselves or with each other, maybe help them to adapt to the situation. Basically, in developing healthy relationships, clearing up communication, mending hurt feelings, resolving conflicts that are more relational in nature. And sometimes these relationship behaviors are called consideration or employee orientation. But we've got these two groups of behaviors, task behaviors and relationship behaviors. We'll be seeing these types of behaviors over and over again in this course. In fact, pretty much everything in life, any interpersonal behavior can be considered either task behavior or relationship behavior. Are you doing it to help the relationship, or are you doing it to help the task that you're trying to accomplish? Now, the leadership grid is the basic theoretical model of this style approach. It was developed by Blake and Mouton a long time ago in 1966, and these same two dimensions are used over and over again in psychology and business and management because they describe so much of what goes on. So what we basically have is we have two dimensions. So this vertical dimension here is concern for people, or the relationship orientation, or the the consideration, relationship behaviors, employee orientation. That's all the same thing. It's all this concern for people here. This other dimension is the task-related behavior, or concern for results. And so in both of these dimensions, your habitual behaviors can be real high with high concern for people, or really low with low concern for people. Or they can be your behaviors can be focused on the results and the task very highly, or they can be not too focused on the task. They can be low in concern for results. Now, it's important to notice that these two dimensions are independent. They're orthogonal. You can be high on one, low on the other, high on both, low on both. They're not opposite ends of the spectrums. And that's really, really important in this model. If you have a high concern for people, that doesn't mean that you're not task-oriented. You can be highly concerned for people and highly concerned for the task too. You can be concerned for one or the other, or you can be not concerned very much for either. Now, these two dimensions. Blake and Mouton divided them up into 5 different areas of the grid. We can start off with someone who's very concerned for people, but not too concerned for the task. And this is called country club management. This is where the manager is really concerned that everybody gets along, that they all have their needs met, that it's a fun, really great atmosphere, and the emphasis is not on getting the work done. Now we'll see that in we'll see later in the course, in some situations that can be really, really good. If you've got people that are highly motivated to do their work, they might not need a lot of direction. But that's the country club management, and you can see that there might be some problems there if all you do is be nice to people. If they're not motivated to do their work, there might be some problems. The other end here is the authority compliance management. In this style of management, the manager is just concerned about getting the results. He or she will do anything that they can to get results. They're not concerned about relationships. They're not concerned about the workers. They're in charge, and they're going to do everything they can to get results. And as you can imagine, there's advantages and disadvantages to that style. Now, if you're low in in both behaviors, low concern for people, low concern for results, this is what's known as impoverished management. This means you just don't care. You don't care about the people, you don't care about the task, you're just there, most likely doing the minimum. Now again, in some situations that might work. In other situations, it could be a good formula for problems. Now, up in this quadrant, the 9-9, the high in concern for results and the high in concern for people, this is what Blake and Mouton call team management. Not because you need to do this with a team, but because you start feeling like a team. You feel like people join together and work for common goals when you've got a manager that's really concerned about the task and really concerned about the people in the group. And so in a lot of ways, this style up here, high concern for the results, high concern for people, is often the best style. And so, and there's one other style. There's called the middle of the road management. This is where you do enough concern for the task, and you have enough concern for the task, enough concern for the people to get the job done, but you don't give it all out. It's kind of a compromising style. Now, this 9-9 style of management in this theory is kind of presented as the best way to do things, being really focused and concerned both on the task and the relationship. And that's what I like about it, especially as a Christian, because God's called us to be serious workers, to accomplish tasks, to serve the organizations that we're with, to serve Him, to get things done. But He's also called us to serve other people. So I am a big fan of this team management approach. So the strengths of this style approach: there's a major shift in leadership research beginning with this type of research, from focusing on traits and abilities, figuring who has it or what they need to do, to examining the behaviors and actions that they choose. Because you can choose to be very relationship oriented. You can choose to be more task oriented. Another strength of this approach is that it's an easy to understand system of classifying leadership behaviors. You've got task behaviors and relationship behaviors. And if something's not going right in a group, you can say, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to focus on the task? Do I need to focus on the relationships? They're kind of all-encompassing groups of behaviors. It's like you've got two main toolboxes of tools. Which one do you need in this situation? And this is validated by a broad range of research. It's interesting. This concern for task and concern for relationship is, they just come up all over the place in psychology when we're studying things. And it's interesting because it's kind of similar to a masculinity and femininity scale. Most guys find it easier to be focused on the task than on relationships. And most women find it easier to be focused on the relationship than the task side of things. Now, that's not true for everybody, but just in general, men tend towards tasks and women tend towards relationship-oriented behaviors and jobs and just most everything in life. And I think that's one of the essences of masculinity and femininity. It's interesting that in Genesis, God said, the Genesis 1 says, God made man in God's image, male and female, he created them. So it's this idea that we need both a male and a female to understand God's image. Just males on one hand or females on the other hand aren't enough to get a good image of God, but we need both males and females together. And this is one of the strongest consistent differences across culture of masculinity and femininity, is this emphasis on task and relationship. And just as God is fully revealed in both the tasks that he's called us to do and what he wants to accomplish and the relationship that he wants to have with us, and in males and females, so it seems like the best management style is going to have both this task and relationship side, both a masculine side and a feminine side to it. Another advantage to this style approach to leadership, it allows leaders to classify and evaluate their own behaviors. You can look at what you're doing. How's this affecting the task? How's it affecting relationships? What do I need to change? Now, there's some criticisms of this style approach, and because it implies that the most effective leadership style is high task and high relationship, you think there'd be a lot of research showing that that works all the time. Well, no, it doesn't. It depends a lot on the circumstances. So we can't really say that high task, high relationship style is always the best. A lot depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to just get the task and you don't care about the relationships, then it might not always be the best. If you just care about the relationships and the task is secondary, it might not be the best either. It also depends on the motivation of the employees and the circumstances that they're in. And we'll see a bunch of other things as the course progresses that it might depend on. However, one thing that does come out consistent in research is that employees are more satisfied with supervisors who have a high concern for people. So the managers who have a high concern for people, who function up in this part of the grid here, they are definitely more appreciated by employees. They tend to stick around longer in the company. And so that much we know for sure. And so you can say that the final criticism is that there's no universal style of leadership that's effective or ineffective in all situations. It's really going to depend on the situation. All right, well, that's the introduction to Chapter 4, the Styles Approach to Leadership. I hope you enjoy this chapter and that you can find all kinds of situations in your own experiences where you can see how this applies. Bye.